So, hey everybody, I'm Steve Youngburns. I manage the wholesale program at the Good Acre. We're a nonprofit located in Falcon Heights, Minnesota, which is in the Twin Cities metro, and we are midway between Minneapolis and St. Paul. We're real near the University of Minnesota Ag Campus, which is fun. I can walk out the back door when I want to take a phone call outside or take a break, and I can walk out amongst their test plots and see what's going on and kind of feel like agriculture, which is a really nice thing in the city. And then we also happen to be right near the Minnesota State Fairgrounds, which is fine most of the year, except for the 10 days that the state fair is going on, and then it's a complete pain in the butt. We have three primary ways we work with farmers. LEAF program, which is our local emergency action farmer fund. We started that last year, and it was a way for us to buy produce from growers whose markets were disrupted by the pandemic or from civil unrest here that we had in Minneapolis in early June last summer. LEAF endures. We're in year 2, and it's still attracting funding. So the plan is to keep it going. Farm Share, that's our CSA program. That's where farmers go when they're a little more established. And then it's kind of, if they graduate from that, they'll move to the wholesale program, and they may end up supplying Farm Share and wholesale. It was super interesting to watch your presentation, Sarah and Laura. And we work closely with a number of big river farmers who are either still there or came out of there and struck out on their own. So it's nice to have that connection. My presentation is a little bit different, and I think if you lay the three of these together, you'll have your master's degree in how to run a food hub. I talk a lot about specific tools. So I kick off things here with a little bit of conversation about why, and then I talk a lot about how to do it. And I have many opinions, some of them strong, on some of the tools we use. Almost all, probably all, online, web browser-based tools, and we have a whole suite of them, and they're a combination of things that work for us and things that are sanity tools, and then things that we kind of put up with because they do a job that we need to get done. So to talk about food hub management tools, you have to ask what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go. What is the prime directive? And I will say I'm no better at figuring out what tools to use than any of you, and nor do I probably have a bigger budget. I'm pretty sure I could do a better job picking tools if I had time to do research. But if we aren't in the thick of produce season, trying to get produce into coolers and orders out the door, we're in debrief and planning season. And while shopping for new systems seems like a clear-cut task, the fact that it can touch so many areas of the business means it affects more than just wholesale and can really shape the work and personality of the whole company. As you will know soon, or if you've ever worked in a nonprofit, time is at a premium, and it's important to use tools that work for you and that don't take time that you don't have. This is a busy slide, partly by design, partly to help you feel the complexity of running a busy food hub and all the opportunity and impending doom, weather, budget, donors, whims, pandemics, school budgets, and who knows what else that keep us awake at night. We run a lot of different programs out of our space: wholesale, CSA, hunger relief, the LEAF program, the emergency grower relief program. We have a busy maker kitchen that's too small. We run a vocational culinary program, which is probably worth another whole presentation. We ran 2 cohorts through there, and now this next one is running off-site because we're trying to raise funds to expand and remodel our kitchen. The question is, how does a busy food hub manage multiple programs in a busy facility with multiple customer and supplier bases, with little physical space for office work, little budget for tech tools, and the typical panic of trying to do too much with not enough. You have to make your tools work for you. So I'll talk about our mission and how it frames my work, and then I'll talk about tools we have, free, paid, and tools I wish we had. The bottom line is, I wish we had spent more on fewer, better, more expensive tools probably, and less time patching together a network of free tools that don't quite work together. And I'm happy to be interrupted with questions. Sarah says yes. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I lost my place here. I want to say prepping these slides has really helped me clarify my thinking about all the tools we use, and may have pushed me toward a stronger commitment to look at our tech tools in the off season, in particular, local food marketplace, what we call the ERP. It's the heart of our wholesale program. And off season is the time to make those changes. Our mission reads, we connect and strengthen farmers, food makers, and communities through good food. And I shorthand that by saying our mission is to create markets for growers. Our facility opened in 2016, and we have worked with a wide network of growers since then, but especially since the pandemic hit and then the murder of George Floyd shut down farmers markets the last weekend in May 2020. And we have increasingly leaned into the part of our mission that wants to build equitable distribution and access to markets. And I know that's a big question for you guys. 2020 was very different from us than what we used to do. My program used to primarily be farm to school, farm to K-12. And we spent 2020 growing, the 2020 growing season, aggregating produce from mostly small minority market growers and distributing their produce into hunger relief programs and food drop sites at churches, parks, and community centers. We spent the winter between growing seasons evaluating and reworking our partnerships and programs, expanding on our work with a large meal box program. And we built a 3-year program, got agreement from Second Harvest Feeding America to supply them with produce exclusively from BIPOC growers for the next 3 years. We spent several weeks surveying growers last winter, finding out what they grow, what they could handle. This is the process that Laura talked about, the midwinter planning, starting to find out what the pieces are and how you put them together. After our first round, we found that our initial contracts were far too big for some of the growers. We spent a couple weeks revising those, and contracts V2 were more realistic. Growers gave input and approved them before signing. And we were learning already, sort of pushing back the walls to allow more room for work we'd started the previous summer. But you know, this bottom little graphic, I'm sure you've all seen it, with equity, equality, equity, and justice. Giving a small grower more business than they could handle could be worse for them than not giving them any business at all, but failing to offer a significant opportunity felt like we wouldn't be doing justice to our mission. So we were balancing, do we give a grower just enough or work with them to create a plan to give them just enough business that it's what they want to help them expand their business if they want, or participate on a basis that makes sense for them. What we ended up for this year was a plan that gave some large contracts, $40,000, and some are bigger than that, to a few larger, more established growers, and small $2,000 to $10,000 contracts to a bunch of smaller, less established growers. Some orders that I ship include a single grower bringing in, say, 40 cases of eggplants or 66 cases of tomatillos, which is a pallet. Most weeks, though, include a lot of orders where 6 growers brought in 11 cases each of radishes, or even 11 growers bringing in 6 cases to make a perfect 11 by 6 pallet of 66 cases of radishes. it was neat to start out the early summer and include a lot of the real small or new growers and say, do you want to provide 6 cases of radishes, a crop that grows well? Most Junes, it was hit and miss this year with the crazy weather. It was a nice way to kick the season off and get started. We had to be very careful how much to bite off, though. I am perfectly happy thinking big. Playing the long game really gives me juice. But I have to remind myself that our small food hub will never fix systemic issues in the food system. That doesn't mean I don't try to lower the fence or give the little guy a taller stool or let everyone see through the fence. So I've taken a couple minutes here to give you an idea of what the big picture is for us and what I keep in mind every day as I do our work. So now I'll give you some background on what we do and why we do it, and you can understand some of the choices we make. So what will equity look like if we're successful? We decided, in so many words, the progress would provide opportunity to growers to build credit, for them to be able to contribute to their communities, and to have the chance to build their business and expand into larger wholesale markets if they wanted to. I return unconsciously to the idea of the commons, which that's a link if you get a copy of the presentation and you're interested in some little extracurricular reading. It's a good article by a guy named Jay Walljasper. He wrote extensively about the commons and said the commons is a new use of an old word meaning what we share, and it offers fresh hope for a saner, more enjoyable future. And the idea refers to a wealth of valuable assets that belong to everyone. I believe that we all share these assets, and that the small produce growers we work with are valuable contributors to our communities, and that we're better off with them in the conversation. So that's what I work for, is to provide them opportunity at a scale they want and to include them in what we do as a community. So we move from the mission to the mundane. We keep the big picture in our hearts, and we go down in the weeds to get stuff done. Here we go on specific tools. So you may or may not be familiar with the concept of an ERP, an Enterprise Resource Planning Suite. It's a set of tools that allow for the integrated management of business processes. The practical challenge for the day-to-day management of businesses, and especially businesses like ours with not bottomless budgets and with small staffs, is, and I say this from experience, how to limit the number of clicks, screens, or workspaces to what is efficient and effective. I spend a lot of time switching between windows and tabs, trying to remember which screen to look at to update the order. I even recently created a spreadsheet that duplicated some of the information in the system we use because I couldn't get it all to display in the same space, and none of the reports that system can create actually did the task. Double entry, not a great idea, but it seems to be working for me in this case, so I go forward carefully. More free tools typically means figuring out more workarounds. Less money, spending less money on tools typically means spending more time completing basic tasks. Better tools mean you can be more efficient. Spend more money, you spend less time, and you use fewer workspaces. And I'm really immersed in practicality. We have this weekly rhythm where we have built orders from our plan. I go into the orders, I send out pick lists, I follow up with growers, find out what they're going to have, close that part of the week, start on the next one. There's 3 big waves of my week, and I move on. And when I get to Friday afternoon, I take about a 2-second deep breath, especially this time of year. And then I go, oh crap, I got to get going on next week already. So I really have to be on my game, and my tools really have to work for me. Side note on getting all staff to work within the same tools, particularly the ERP, means everyone is more efficient. Staff share more resources and information, and there's less siloing. There are a bunch of tools we use for free: Gmail, G Suite. HubSpot is a relationship management program. Apple Photos, and there are nearly as many that we pay for: MailChimp, Airtable, QuickBooks Online, Zoom. We use a contract bookkeeper instead of a staff member. I really wish that we would grow enough to where it made sense for us to have a CFO, and that may be one of the ways we evolve coming up. We are heavily invested in G Suite tools, Gmail, Drive, Sheets, Docs, and Slides. I use those all the time. We have Dropbox. I actually don't use it. Dropbox is more of a parking place, but I'm constantly sharing presentations. This has really been a benefit in working from home during the pandemic, where I can have live documents with our warehouse assistant and operations manager, and it reduces the amount of phone calls. We chat all the time within the chat screen in Gmail. Customer relationship management platform, HubSpot, has a place if everyone uses it. No one else in the company uses it for me, and I come from, in my last 2 jobs, I used a CRM platform, and it was incredibly useful. You had one-stop shopping for contact information. If someone changed their job, you could update that. If the buyer at a store changed, you could update that. As it is now, I use it to create a durable record of a meeting or a conversation, and if I want to share my notes with my coworkers. And what that does is that takes it out of the email inbox and puts it over elsewhere. If I move on and someone else has my job, they can go into HubSpot to look up specific conversations that were, not just about nuts and bolts orders and questions like that. More free level tools. We use Meet. I use Meet all the time. I don't mind Meet. It doesn't have a turn off self view. I hate looking at myself in meetings. We have free Zoom and paid Zoom. I have a Google Voice number, and that was genius when I started using it. I immediately began getting fewer calls on weekends, and when I was on vacation, I turn it off when I need to. We don't use Slack. Other organizations like us do. And actually had to look this up when I was thinking about it. Whatever happened to Skype? And what I learned is that Skype kind of didn't improve when everyone really needed conferencing tools during the pandemic, and it's part of Microsoft now, and we don't use Microsoft at all because we're all on Macs. So Skype went away. I spent years using Skype for calls. I use the Mac native Photos app to organize photos. Once you start running a food hub, running a wholesale program, you realize you want to have good product picks. And I have a zillion photos. Right away when I started this, I made myself label my folders. And I've kept up doing it, so I can actually find photos when I need to. And I think, whose farm was that when I was on last summer when they had the melons that were hit by hail, and I could go find it. These photos are from a food safety visit that I made with the Minneapolis Public School farm to school coordinator buyer, and the grower was showing us his hand wash station, his harvest knife, improvements he'd made to the hand wash station, and some tarping where he had to tarp to keep the chicken dust from blowing onto the vegetable field next door. We created our own grower contracts. It's purely an Excel creation. That link takes you to an example of one. I can also share that tomorrow in the tech session. On our grower contracts, the top is the same for everyone. We ask them to agree to our product quality and packing standards, deliver on time, terms that we will pay, which is we pay promptly. The bottom section is customized for each grower, and it shows how many cases of each item on what date they will be supplying. Practically speaking, one of the issues we've run into this is crops don't always come at the time that we contracted. We had beginning of the season where crops literally froze on Memorial Day weekend and then burned out in mid-June. We went from frozen to fried in a matter of days, and that began the drought. So I have done a whole lot of, let's just say my work has, complexity has increased a lot. I do a lot of connecting with growers to find out, okay, next week and 2 weeks from now, you've got this crop and this crop, these quantities coming up. How do they look? And I mentioned carrots while Laura was talking. We had a lot of small growers who don't have irrigation, whose carrots didn't germinate. And so we've had a lot of orange and rainbow carrots fail, several plantings in some cases. So I'm scrambling to find carrots, and it's been very, let's say, lively for me to keep up with when crops are coming available. Paid tools. It is debatable whether having a contract bookkeeper is really better than employing a staff accountant. It was an internal decision. Even with a dedicated bookkeeper, I now, several staff touch finance things through the day. I end up talking about finance. It can be with 3 people beyond me. So no staff have one-stop shopping for money questions. So we use QuickBooks Online. I think most small businesses do. Tied together with that, we use billandpay.com, and that's a customer payment portal. I'm really happy we brought that in. For about 99 out of 100 customers, they log in, they figure out how to create an account, and they pay their bills. I probably get, one question every 2 or 3 weeks from someone who can't figure out how to pay their bill or don't understand what they're looking at it. Bill.com is the other side. We use it to send vendor payments. I think most growers, even small Hmong and Latino growers who don't do a lot online, I think most of them are signed up to get payments, ACH payments from Bill.com. Airtable. I'll talk a little bit about Airtable. It's an online database program that we use for planning and for our receiving log. And then MailChimp, kind of a default, one of the main newsletter programs. Our ERP, Local Food Marketplace, has new MailChimp functionality to make them work together. It's just a couple weeks old, so I don't have a real good idea how they work together. Airtable is a whole discussion of its own. It's an incredibly powerful online relational database program. And as you can see from the screenshot, it's incredibly complex visually. There's a steep learning curve to make it work for you, but it is incredibly useful when you want to keep a list, but Excel won't do what you want it to. It's a pretty good planning tool. Our planning grid is quite complex. There's a lot of information there. My main beef is, besides the things I mentioned about it having a big learning curve and it's kind of hard to take it visually, is it doesn't live within our ERP. I have to double enter. We create this plan, and then I have to go over to Local Food Marketplace and re-enter orders. Just simply that double entry is something that takes time and can introduce errors. You will meet, I think, David Van Eckhout. I don't think you've met him yet. He's our farm program director. He loves Airtable, and he really loves databases. I like them, but not everyone can get their brain to think like that. And when you pick tools, you have to think about who will be using them and whether the tools will be a good fit. If you have any experience from years ago with Microsoft Access, That's a database. This is like that, except way better, but it's still not an ERP to do all your work under one umbrella. We use a couple paid tools for development since we're a nonprofit. I know little about these. Only a couple people within our company touch these very often. 4 to 5 people maybe. Bloomerang is donor management software. You know, it's something that most ERPs won't have, except I'm going to mention NetSuite in a little bit. NetSuite actually has something to do donor management software. I mentioned them though because they are tools that we use, that we pay for, and it ties into this ongoing theme of more systems, more siloing, or potentially more siloing. This is the heart of my work and of our wholesale business. I spend a lot of time. I spend all day in local food marketplace. I always have multiple tabs open. I usually have 3 windows open with a bunch of different tabs. I manage all customers, growers, suppliers, products, inventory orders, purchase orders, even lot codes within LFM. It does a lot. And yet there is so much that it doesn't do that well. It's lots of clicks, lots of different screens and moving around. And this reminds me that I want an ERP that does more of the work for me. One quick example, I'm kind of jousting with their tech support over the fact that I can't generate a straight bill of lading from within LFM without doctoring one of their reports. And even when I do so, it doesn't really produce what we need. Our shipments to Second Harvest are picked up by a third-party carrier, and so we need a bill of lading for that. I finally gave up, and we bought a pad of blank bills of lading, and this is the first week that we're doing it. The driver laughed because we've given him, I think, well, 6 or 7 different reports that are sort of handwritten and things crossed off. And I said, "You kind of work with bills of lading at every other stop, don't you?" He said, "Yeah." Excuse me. This screenshot shows some of the complexity of our regular everyday work. A lot goes into making orders just so before you can create an invoice and load the truck. I can do a demo on this in our tech session tomorrow. Show you the back end. This is a screen cap of the packing sheet I created. It is completely duplicated from local food marketplace. I have to literally print out a report, right click and copy it, put it in here, and then format it so it works. But this is the only way that I can figure out how to generate weights and everything and put them together and add them up for a pallet and generate a number of cases. So this is a huge workaround, and I create it from scratch every week. So where does that leave us? We are mid-season. We're making it happen. We're on our way to shipping about $350,000 from BIPOC growers, specifically in hunger relief. We'll probably ship over $500,000. I think we're well on our way to over $500,000 this year from a program that my gross was about $140,000 3 years ago, before the pandemic. So you can see that we've expanded tremendously. Right place, right time, context with a lot of BIPOC growers when the pandemic hit. We are on track to move our mission forward and build more equity, but we spend a lot of time moving between platforms and manually connecting data with where it needs to go. I worked with NetSuite in a previous job, and I know enough about it to say there is a long setup, a steep learning curve. It's a big industrial, sometimes clumsy tool. They have a discounted version for nonprofits. I really don't know how well it fits. I don't know what's better. I have a feeling we probably would not make the jump to a NetSuite nonprofit level we're just not big enough to balance the money and the kind of staff we have. We don't have in-house tech support. We don't have any consultants who could help, but it's pretty attractive to think about a system that integrates the ERP, your email, calendar, customer contacts. All those customer contacts would be updated in one place, and then all the inventory purchasing tasks would be within there as well. I am thinking a lot about now how many staff hours are being used to navigate between all these different systems, and can we work over the winter to let everyone feel a little less crazy and eliminate some of the siloing that inevitably happens when when people are using different systems. So the challenges, this is extremely practical here, much different than the top level presentations from the other folks. But how do we limit the number of clicks and screens and workspaces to find tools that are efficient and effective? And back to what I said at the beginning, more free tools is less good than more paid tools is less good than an integrated ERP. Again, I'm not sure we'll get there, but I am pondering so many tools, so many clicks, so many workspaces. So was that useful, you guys, to hear all that practical stuff after hearing Sarah and Laura talk about more big picture stuff? I thought when Sarah asked me to talk about tools, I thought, well, that means the tools I use all day.
I thought it was really interesting and helpful. I'm curious, for like the beginning hub just starting out, what you guys would say would be is going immediately with some kind of online software like local food marketplace or something the way to go, or are there certain tools that you would say are important right from the beginning versus ones that could be added kind of later on?
100% go with something like local food marketplace and do some research. I've looked at a ton of them, and there are a ton of them out there. There's already been a generation that's come and gone. They didn't thrive. They didn't get investment. They were brought into other systems, but absolutely. And I'm kind of down on LFM right now because I'm in the thick of the season, and we have a very small staff, but it does the basic tasks very well. And we're constantly pushing the limits of it. I really think we're a little too big, although Wisconsin Food Hub you're a lot bigger than we are. So, but I mean, with the complexity and the kind of business we're doing, I feel like it's not a perfect fit, but it's pretty good. So it absolutely. And I would use G Suite. Totally. I'm in Drive all day long. The other things that I'd be happy to talk with you more later on specifics, but the others really depend on your situation.
Yeah, I had heard some similar kind of maybe grumblings about local food marketplace. I wasn't sure if it was more designed. I'd seen it mostly from a direct to consumer as a direct to consumer offering, but it works well for wholesale as well.
The thing that works against me is the strength of LFM is like online farm to consumer sales, and where growers have an account and log in and manage their own inventory and pick list. And that's just not our grower base. Our grower base, for the vast majority of them, English is a second language. There's no way they're going to, even if we spend all winter working with them, I don't think they would use it as a tool. So that, that's like going into it. We're not the right demo for LFM to have growers who are primarily native, not native English speakers, be able to log in, manage all the complexity of it. So that's why I think LFM's okay. We're just not the right business using it. And I don't have a better solution. I haven't heard great things about Harvey.
I could talk about that if anyone's curious, but yeah, it's just like, it's complex. I think like Small Farm Central was supposed to be, but I have never used it for wholesale. We've only used it for a CSA. There are like some options, but yeah. I can speak more to that if anyone's curious. But.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to hear a little bit about Harvey from the actual user perspective. Because I've heard some sales pitches.
Yeah. I think so. We switched from it because we had to switch away from Small Farm Central, which we had been using for many years to manage the CSA. We had never tried to do wholesale. We have such a small amount of wholesale, it doesn't make sense anyway. But we only had ever used Small Farm Central for our CSA, and we were looking into customizable options because we were struggling to sell CSA shares at the time, and so we were looking to give ourselves like a edge, I guess, by having customizable shares. And we were debating between Farmigo and Harvey. And somehow the person who was in charge of that decision had, basically it was kind of like Harvey's supposed to be like the Cadillac of CSA software. And so we decided to go with it because we had a little bit of money to spend at that point. And it's been okay. I just think it's a difficult system again to learn. And then like, it's not supposed to be still like in development, but it feels like there's still some things that are not customizable that you want to be customizable, or like whenever you want to change something, it's a little bit hard to get in touch with the people that need to make the change. So there's just like, I don't know, I think it's kind of with any software, there's like little things that don't work. In general, it works okay. And customers love it because they can customize their CSA boxes. But yeah, I think on the administrative side, it's a little bit harder.
Yeah, by the way, we don't do customizable CSA boxes, and I don't manage that program, but I think we're generally happy with that. We have seasonal shares, and you can sign up, like if there's a meat share, you can sign up to be part of it, but the standard issue boxes every week are the same for everybody.
Yeah, it makes it complicated. Like we have this like great system that we had worked out before doing customizable shares of like the contracts, but then when you have customizable shares, like customers can opt out of the things that are contracted and like opt in for other things. And it's worked out okay, but it just makes it a little bit more complicated because we have enough other markets where we can still redirect that produce that was contracted, but makes it a little like less predictable, and also just takes more time because we have to label each individual share now that has like each customer name, and it has all like the list of the things that go into the box. And so then volunteers also have to be like, we have more volunteers to back boxes because they have to be like doing quality control and reading everything that goes into the box. Otherwise customers complain. I just think it's like another level of customer service that I don't know if we should have gone there. I don't think we would have had we known the demand was going to skyrocket the last couple of years, but
last year caught us all by surprise.
Yes.
CSAs took off.
Yep.
There's a really well-regarded ERP type system. They actually refer to it as an ERP based in Ohio, Farm Fair. And they have a great planning module that I got to test drive a little bit. It was too late in our season for me to adopt it. But the idea of not having that double entry built in is quite attractive.
I have a question about wholesale and contracts. So I think when I ventured into this project and started speaking to people, the answer to this, when I asked if there are contracts with wholesale buyers, if I remember correctly, the answer was not exactly. And can somebody speak to that, that world of things, and then how you're navigating, if you're like, okay, we think we have this much in contract or in sales, how you're then moving that down to the producer level and that planning piece with producers so that you can equitably distribute those sales among producers. Can we, kind of get a rundown of that?
Contracts are the holy grail, and this is the first year we've been able to do any contracting. And you heard me say it's been great. We've been constantly revising them, but Sarah in Wisconsin, you guys do a lot of contracting, right? No,
No, we don't.
You do all that planning, but they're not contracts.
Yeah, and we try to enforce the verbal and written agreements we've made about like this is all the things that our farmers want to grow this year. This is what you bought last year. Are there things on this list that, are way out of whack with what you expect to buy next, this coming season? And then we also have gotten some of our bigger buyers to say, yes, we will buy $1.2 million of produce from you over the season. It's not a contract, but it's sort of like, you understand that this is what we need to succeed as the Wisconsin Food Hub Cooperative. And then, like I said, we just sent them a little gentle reminder saying, here is all the things that you bought from us so far. Here's all the things that you said you were going to buy from us. What are you going to do about it? Because you're not meeting what the commitments, the verbal commitments you made to us over the winter. And then, like, during today, just sitting here today, I've seen the emails, because I'm not doing this negotiation, our general manager is, and I've seen them now come in with like, okay, here's our plan for the POs we're going to issue you over the next 4 weeks at these prices. So we don't have a contract, but we've worked pretty hard to be able to build a working relationship to make sure we can meet our needs. But it's not pretty. But we're worried about doing a contract, because then what happens if we can't meet? What are the contingencies on our side if we have crop failure or, and we haven't worked that out. So we do this little bit of a handshake agreement.
I talked a lot at the beginning of my presentation about the big picture, and I really do keep it in mind every day. And I really am thinking about creating equity. And it's several steps down the road, but if we are successful at creating these equitable opportunities, I really hope that part of that is that everybody is willing to enter into more firm agreements with each other, that we have the confidence with growers that they can say, yeah, I'll do this at this time in this quantity, and with customers. That's not the tradition. And we've got a lot of work ahead, but I think it's a great goal for this work.
Yeah, I would love to see, and we've talked about this over the years, but haven't kind of gotten enough traction from the buyer side. Is there almost a kind of a hybrid CSA model where, what if these grocery stores paid in advance for, like, if they said, maybe they paid us half of what they said they would buy over the season in January, and then it was almost like, or 100% would be great, but because that's the cash flow problem too. How could you get those funds in advance? Because then we wouldn't have to wait to pay farmers. We could pay them when they drop their product off, or at least when it was accepted at the dock of the buyer. So that would be more just, and that would be more fair, because basically we're taking the risk. And if we're trying to kind of manage and spread the risk more equitably across the supply chain, then having these agreements where the money is more assured, and meets the needs of the farmers and whatever associated business or organization is helping the farmers to gain access to the market, then I think that would be the ideal.
Sarah, I'd be shocked if you got Woodman's to do it, and Angels would sing if Kroger did.
I don't know. I'm always optimistic.
Yes, you have to be.
Is that pretty standard then, that most food hubs are not operating with larger contracts? Do any of you know?
I don't know for sure, because I don't know a lot of food hub people. I mean, I know, but I haven't asked about that. I think it's the holy grail, and if you get it, you're lucky. I think doesn't happen nearly often enough. You might actually check in with is it the Cleveland Food Hub? they're pretty robust, and I think they have contracts on
Oh.
some items, but not just like regular produce. Might be like on protein, dairy.
Yeah, I think the Overland Food Hub is one in that area.
Maybe
that
that's what I'm
might,
thinking
and
of.
then, yeah, and then the local food, or not local food market, but local food connection is another one that serves kind of the southwest part of the state. Which I think they had mentioned to me, I'd worked with them in the past, they mentioned that they had a contract with, but I don't know if it was an official contract or like kind of what you guys are talking about as well.
You know, something for you to keep in mind. I made friends with a couple Ohio Food Hub people at the Good Food Conference a couple years ago. And I was shocked at how much longer their season was than ours. And also, you know, when you move to that part of the Midwest and the Eastern Seaboard is so nearby, there are a lot more small, medium regional food hubs, and Farm Fair in particular is really good at sharing inventory between cooperating food hubs. And that's something to consider if you're in an area where there are kind of partner, brother, sister food hubs around. We have a couple that we work with. We don't share inventory like that. We work with Hoffa, Big River. We don't do that with you guys. Shared Ground actually is housed in our facility, but we don't share inventory. I buy from them.
I had one other comment, I guess. We used to have a contract with Lake Winds Food Co-op when Lake Winds Food Co-op first opened. We were able to contract with them for like Thai chili peppers and a few other things, cabbages, and I don't remember what, but what happened. So like we had these two growers that were like all lined up and they grew all the stuff, and but that it was a new grocery store. And so they had contracted like 10 cases of Thai chili peppers, like every 2 weeks or something, like crazy, because people don't buy that many Thai chili peppers, but they didn't know their demand because they were a new store and they were just opening. So like the co-op really wanted to support the farmers, and like I was advocating for the farmers because I'm like, well, you grew all the stuff, and like what else are we going to do with 10 cases of Thai chili peppers every week? But also like not wanting to advocate, even though like they would fulfill the contract, we like also didn't want to like destroy the relationship. So it also comes down to like, if you have a contract and it doesn't work out on one end or the other, like what are you going to do in reality? Maybe it's different if it's like Kroger or something, but I don't know. It's hard to be like holding people accountable if they like literally, like the co-op ended up like selling some of their Thai chili peppers to like a Thai restaurant down the street. And I was like, this is crazy. Like I'm like making them buy something that they can't sell. So I also sort of was like, okay, let's figure something else out to do with this, or like meet them halfway. But even with a contract, it's still sort of hard to like know how to handle that situation when it happens.
Contracts are good till someone says, actually, no.
Well, and this goes to the grower contract piece. I know that I spoke to Steve and Laura both about this as we were talking about this course. Is, you know, so somebody says, yes, I can grow those 10 cases of scallions a week, and they bring them in, and what if the quality is not up to par? And that's kind of a big piece of this whole question. What do you do? Especially if you're talking to a beginning grower or, you know, somebody you're really trying to support. What does that look like?
I have rejected some produce. I just did yesterday. I spent a lot of time building rapport with growers, so I can communicate with them. So, you know, we ask about their kids, and we talk about, oh my gosh, with the Hmong growers, we talked about Suni Lee, the Hmong athlete who won gold. You know, that was great. And it got us to be able to communicate, to chat about that. So when I do have a quality issue, I can go, these don't meet our standards. But before we get to that point, that's what David Van Eckhout does. And that's what our produce standards do. And every grower has a copy of this. It's not enough for them to have a PDF of something. Grower education is really important part of that. But even I rejected some squash this morning. They came in, the case sizes were wrong, and and some of the quality was bad. And I felt bad, but I had, again, enough rapport with the buyer to be able to say, we can't take all those.
That, I mean, that's similar to us. We, you know, we have like all the growers get a binder, and then we go over it every year, and it's got the quality stuff in. And then we do have like the rejection policies that, and those are in the marketing agreement too. Like if it doesn't meet the standard, you know, this is what happens, and the food hub reserves the right to reject it before it gets into our warehouse. And then we also have the details of what you do if it gets to the buyer and the buyer rejects it. And then I don't think we have, like, it may not be spelled out, but what we try to do is we want to work with people because we want them to be successful. We want to problem solve the issue if they're having quality issues. So, you know, we've had in the past just like a very clear thing of like, what is the repercussion of continual quality issues, or, you know, like if you do not correct your issue and you keep trying to put that lower quality thing into the hub, and that there are some repercussions on the like second and third incidents. Because what happens with, you know, if we're going into a buyer and you know, one person's cucumbers keep getting rejected, but there are someone's zucchinis and tomatoes and other things, then sometimes they will send the whole truck back because they don't want to deal with it. And if the cucumbers were in the back of the truck, so we also, you know, that's another reason to impress upon co-op members, like, we're all in this together. And we, you know, like, you may think that your cucumbers are going to be impacted, but you're actually impacting everybody, because also if we go low quality into a buyer, then they may say, you know what, I don't want to order from you at all. And they'll do things like punish you for a week or two, like, well, we're not going to order from you. Well, if another grower happens to be, that's their window of when, you know, their stuff was really going to be selling into, that's pretty serious. And that's a pretty constant thing. And so that's part of just all the work we do year round, is just trying to have people understand that this is a co-op and we're all in this together, and try to build everybody up to be able to meet the quality, but trying to be very clear so that you have that piece of paper, you know, that backs up like why you have to reject something. It's not an arbitrary decision. It has to do with like a specific standard.
We also, Laura, you've seen this. It's LEDC, Latino Economic Development Center. We have there's a couple different versions of this with actual pictures and in 3 languages. So that's helpful, but you know, you don't create that instantaneously. And I'm sorry, Laura, you were going to jump in there.
I guess, yeah, I would just echo what both of you said about education and trying to catch it like before it gets to the packing shed or whatever. And then also having people in the packing shed, trying to do that education with people like the first time they're harvesting something. And then I also think like farmers have a lot of pride in like what they're turning in. And so they want to know too, like they don't want to turn in stuff that's subpar. And so people, I don't know, I think that people value that feedback too, even though it's hard. And then sometimes it's like, well, what else could you do with this? Like, is there anything that you could, like, if your bunch sizes are totally wrong, like, can you just rebunch something? Or like, you know, is there some like remedy, or could it go to like some of our hunger relief markets or something like that, where there's some like different standards. So I don't know. That's all I would have to say in addition.
We did something that seems super basic, because when we went further away from the inventory model, you know, we weren't doing as much in-house inspection before stuff got onto the truck. So we were kind of counting, and then we went pretty lean on our warehouse staff. So we really needed our farmers to make sure that they were giving us the buyer specified quality. So what we did is we got big sheets of these little orange stickers printed, and it's now a requirement that every pallet that leave someone's farm, they have to put a sticker on it and sign off that they are vouching for the quality in there. So it's kind of just one more thing of asking them, like, are you, take a really good look at this stuff. You know, it's coming to the food hub. It's going to come into the warehouse, then get on the truck. And it's interesting. I was talking to Tara, our general manager. She said, you'd be surprised how much just that asking them to do the extra step has really helped in some cases, where people just go, oh yeah, I guess I can't send crap to the food hub. I guess I gotta look at it.